Okay, so story time. I found out about a really weird rabbit hole of unfiction projects thanks to a YouTube channel called Richter Overtime, which I'm just gonna call source horror for convenience, and that will make sense when I go into that video. But while I was watching these, some of the words that Richter was using and the recent hype and muck-up surrounding the new website Welcome Home has led to the creation of this video. And it's not just Richter, it's not just Matt. I've seen other people make this mistake as well, and I think it's time that I clear the air when it comes to ARGs and unfiction. So, welcome to the Unfiction Terminology video, a place to educate yourself in the world of internet horror as it stands on the end of a fine blade that is the point before mainstream coverage. Starting, of course, with, what the fuck even is unfiction? Well, much like everything in here, it's a hard question to answer, and there are many umbrellas that are ever expanding under it, and are often confused for one another. But, put simply, unfiction is the art of taking something fictional and treating it as the truth within that fiction. A very delicate balance that is hard to pull off within entertainment, but when done so correctly is a truly wonderful sight to behold. But what makes that different from any standard form of fiction? After all, everything within a book or a movie is fiction, but it is the truth for those characters in that story, so wouldn't that fit under the definition I have given? And using the definition I have now, yes, but in reality, no. And that's the key component that I've left out of my description. The bleeding of reality. Everything within unfiction tries to sell you that something happening within it is in the real world, as if they were real events. This is where the first umbrella term in unfiction comes in, ARG, short for alternate reality game, and it is often traded by the uneducated as the proper term for this medium as a whole, as it is one of the oldest terms, even predating the term unfiction. Now then, most if not all ARGs are unfiction, but not all unfiction projects are ARGs. So how do you define what is and isn't an ARG? Much like everything else, this is not that clear cut, and will be argued back and forth over and over. It has been for years. My understanding of it goes like this. An unfiction project becomes an ARG when there's an interactive element with the audience. More so, it requires the audience to participate in some form with the story and the presented alternate reality to move that story forward. This could be as simple as reaching a subscriber a la Dad/Man, or highly complex in the form of puzzles such as Knock 10 with its everything. Nick Nocturne from the YouTube channel Nightmind puts it best in his video on the topic. If the story can't progress without a player solving a piece of a puzzle, or can't get the full story without a piece of info locked behind a prerequisite, such as a puzzle or a geo-drop, then it is an ARG. If you can experience a story by itself and have it tell its story with or without you, it's unfiction. But it might fall under another part of unfiction's many subcategories, such as another old favorite. Okay, so what is a mockumentary? Simply put, it's a fictional documentary, whether it be pre-curated with interviews and quote-unquote real footage, such as This Is Spinal Tap, or on the flip side, a collection of found footage, a favorite of the horror genre as presented in films like The Blair Witch Project. It has been used in many online web series, dating back to the big three Slenderman series, Marble Hornets, Everyman Hybrid, and Tribe 12. Other series like this would include the likes of Ashram's promotional materials, Chip Time, and Just Acquaintances, just to name a few examples. Out of all the subgenres of unfiction, a mockumentary style, or mostly found footage style, was the most popular for a time in the early years. But with the age of the internet involved, we most associate with the term unfiction, what I like to call active cases are quite simple. It's unfiction playing out in real time as it's happening, and we are getting new videos of those events to further the narrative. It's a highly complex form of narrative that could only be made on the internet on sites like YouTube, Twitter, and in some cases TikTok. Yeah, there are some of these active cases on TikTok, and they are doing some insane stuff. Everyman Hybrid is probably the clearest example of this, taking place primarily across 3 different sites with a bunch of Twitter accounts, the YouTube page, and a Blogspot page. Some of my other favorites being Dear David, Petscop, and 10 Tapes. Many pull elements from other parts of the Unfiction umbrella, some even defy all logic and go completely meta, but they are all fantastic stories in their own right. Now then, an active case doesn't have to actually be actively updating to fit this category. It must, however, have more than one video, with each video pushing the narrative forward or even back in some way. Basically, you need a sense of progression over time or multiple videos. If you don't have that, well, then you might fit into our next category. Oh, performance art, what we wouldn't do without you. These are the projects dominated by Wham City Comedy, the sheer insanity of projects like 15 Experience, Cat Ghost, Catastrophe Crow, and Jack Torrance. I'll also throw in The Vault in here. Legit, go watch it, or the video made by Hugbees talking about it. Probably one of the most underrated projects out there. Now then, obviously, not all performance art is going to fall into the Unfiction umbrella, but stories like these do fall into the category due to the lack of audience interaction anyway. A point that I forgot to mention with active cases is that they feel like that they are happening in some form of reality. Like you can go to or experience what is happening for yourself if you so dared. Performance art, however, has a strict veil to it, something that prevents you from going there or just straight up break the rules of reality as you know it. Much like how confusing Unfiction is, some performance art crosses over into other categories, and no one series will ever be one thing. For me, though, a piece of performance art is either one video or a single collection of videos all released at once, or all take place around the same time as the rest of the footage, or all related. An active case could take place across months to literal years, and could bleed over into reality at any point. A performance art will bleed into reality for a moment in time, and then vanish to possibly never be heard from again. I'm lacking a segue for this next bit, so let's get into what's been taking over Unfiction for the least last year or so. Old film reels, VHS recordings, video games of yesteryear consoles, these are all analog horror. Popularized by such series such as Mandela Catalog, Monument Mythos, and The Walton Files, though honestly I prefer stuff like CHSS and Aspiciio Omnium. Analog horror has quickly gained popularity and a bunch of copycats that don't really try anything new with the formula. Analog horror loves to play with a sense of nostalgia, as well as some of the inherently creepy nature of some older technology in the modern day. While VHS is the most common I have seen, attempts have been made to use Super 8 film stock, PS1 games, which I highly recommend you look into the world of PS1 horror, and most recently the previously mentioned source horror from the top of the video. I'm honestly waiting to see if anyone would be willing in order to give the analog horror genre a shot with old versions of RPG Maker, but that will have to live rent-free in my head till either I myself or someone else pulls it off. Either way though, I feel this part of Unfiction has only really scratched the surface and just needs a few more daring minds willing to try something new. Which brings me to the latest obsession of the Unfiction world. Now then, liminal spaces are more of a phenomena and not Unfiction per se. However, they have seen some recent and well-made attempts to join the concept of liminal spaces into Unfiction. If you don't know what a liminal space is an area of a real or fictional place that just feels off. Be it from the lack of people to the pure near silence with the only ambient hum. They are mostly indoors or just straight up places that have been abandoned by or never inhabited by humanity, but are always familiar and man-made. Mostly I'm pointing to Kane Pixel's Backroom series, as well as the TikTok account of Killing Maruda, which does give off some similar vibes, if not strictly being liminal. And Nexpo's new website, Liminal Land, demands your exploration. Again, much like analog horror, liminal space in the world of Unfiction has only really had its surface scratched, and I will be talking about the feeling way more in my upcoming source horror video. Hopefully that won't take too much longer, and the further and further I get into the rabbit hole. Jumping back to the main driver of why I wanted to make this video, which was GT Live miscategorizing Home as an ARG, as well as not knowing the identity of the project's creator, Clown, which sadly did piss off a lot of people on Twitter. I'm not going to defend GT Live, and I'm not going to defend MatPat in this video. I will say there is some merit to the reactions, and there are some overreactions as well without greater context of the situation. The other thing I will say is that MatPat specifically does avoid other coverage channels before he works on his own content, so he can inform his own ideas from going in 100% blind. If he follows up the stream with a video with his own theory, then he and his team will put their own research, then make a video, and only after that video drops will he go into the coverage done by others. I see the merits in this method, but I don't fully agree with it myself. That is as far as I'm going to touch that drama. I have said my piece. What I will do is use this video to help educate so stuff like miscategorization doesn't happen in the future. So how would I go about categorizing Welcome Home? Well, simply put, it is unfiction. It has aspects of analog horror to it, it touches both performance art and an active case, but most importantly, it is doing something new. It is an analog restoration, something from the past being put back together piece by piece and taking some evil force along with it. Or at least that's how I see it. Only creator Clown knows for sure, and I wish him all the luck in his project when he comes back from his break. Anyways, I hope you learned something new today, and going forward, you take the knowledge of this video and add it to your personal lexicon. The scene is ever-changing, and we will always have to invent new terms for those who break in new fields. I'll be covering that in what should be my next video. Throw a like on this, and comment what you think of this all down below. Sorry for being long-winded. Subscribe for my dive into source horror and other more normal videos. And until next time, this is Team Dude 91 signing out.